All right, welcome back. It's video number 34 in the YouTube classroom. This is Autodesk 3ds Max 2018.
Quarter one.
Very
week
exciting.
7,
Today we're going
day
to
4.
finish up our UV. Now, last time we were working on this process of laying out the UV in level 33. Yeah. Keep getting those levels. Anyway, number 34. We are going to lay this out better because in the current situation, your 2D artist will hate you, because if you want to have any sort of like images wrapped around this vase, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to work with. This curved nature means that if you put any sort of material on here that's striped or difficult in any way to line up, they're going to want to murder you, because they're going to have to do a whole lot of work, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Let's go ahead and add this checker. You don't have to do this in your process, by the way. This is just me giving you an example. I'm going to make this viewport, or this material in the viewport. I've got unwrap selected. Let me get out of there. Cool. And I'm going to add this object to it. And now we're going to see some of the problems we have inherent in it. Now, this bitmap that I'm using can tile. So I'm going to make it tile. Let's do 10 by 10. So let's say I want this to be made out of tiny little tiles or something to make it look like, I don't know, whatever it is. In order to get this to look good, your 3D artist, or your 2D artist is actually, I'll get the grid off there so you can see it better. Your 2D artist is going to have to go in and see exactly where the seam is and try and manipulate the image around that seam. That's going to be a real pain, and they're not going to be happy at all. But the way to make their life easier is to, instead of going for distortionless, is to give them the potential of a little more distortion and a few more seams like this, but make their life easier by putting things in a line. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to select this object and we're going to try and even this stuff out. Now, inherently, anything curved is going to have a curve when you lay it out flat. It's the same problem we have with our bearskin rug. You have something curvy that then has to be laid out flat. The flatter you lay things out, the more distorted they'll be. But it makes it easier to work with from a 2D Photoshop perspective. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try and make our 2D artist happy. So today, a lot of what we're going to use is jumping back in between vertex. And so that's number 1 and number 3, which is polygons in our UV modifier. And last time we used peel, which is really cool because it does a whole lot of like relaxing for us like this. But in this case, we're actually going to go back and start trying to lay this stuff out a little more flat. So for instance, this section in particular, to get this flat, we are going to go back to our relax tool and go by polygon angles, but it's not going to do much for us. So what we're actually going to have to do is start thinking about how we can set a couple edges to be equal and then take it from there. So I'm going to hit number 2 to grab the edge, grab this top edge. Actually, first, before anything, I'm going to sort of rotate this around, and you can do this with this tool here by grabbing this middle section until we get one line that's basically straight, and that will be this one. I'm going to use this edge as our primary selection. So boom, boom, and I select that. Now this button here aligns it vertically perfectly. Now it's already pretty perfect already, so that's good. So now I'm going to take this one, double click that, and align it horizontally perfectly. And this section here, double click that and align it horizontally perfectly. Now I can take this and stretch it out until I've got, if you hold Shift and Alt, it will evenly spread out. And I want this as equal as possible. And also, you won't be able to tell, but now I'm getting much more straight, accurate lines that are a lot easier to hide seams on. So you can see, you know there's a seam here, but unless you look really closely, it's hard to find it. That's what we want. We want to be able to hide the seams as best we can. So far, we're doing all right. This is also a time we're going to work a lot with that checker map we had before. So I'm going to drag that checker map on so we can see it easily. There. Oh, I forgot to make it visible, I think. I did. There we are. Good. Okay, cool. So once again, we want squares, perfect squares, which on the inside we have, and on the bottom we have, which is nice. You'll also notice that down here is also squares, so that's pretty good. Here, though, this bottom section, we have squares, but they're slightly distorted. We'll talk about ways to make our 3D artist, our 2D artist life a little better. Now, once we have something set like this, like that's square, we're going to be getting distortion. We should be well aware that there is going to be some distortion in the image, mostly down at the bottom, and you can sort of see how it starts waving in at the bottom. Generally, for most 2D artists, that is preferable, because if they want to run a line through this image down here, they can do that without too much hassle, and it will connect across. If you don't have it laid out flat in a logical way like this, they're going to have to like spend a lot of time tweaking to get it set up. So let's go ahead and grab this, get it out of the way for now, because our big problem is not this. This is already pretty good. It's not this, because this is already pretty good. We may have to relax that. Our big problems are here, and mostly this problem. Now what we want to do is we want to lay it out so it's a rectangle. We want to keep our squares, but we want them to run parallel with our main edges. Okay, the way we're going to do that is very similar to what we just did earlier. We're going to grab the top edge like this by double clicking on it, and then we're going to use this align horizontally to pivot. That's going to create overlap, which is generally bad. Oops. But we're going to drag it up and get it out of the way. Now we know that before we did this, that the distance is about this far. So I'm going to try and keep that distance still. So I'm going to double click, make it flat, and I'm going to move it up so it's about the same distance. Okay. This section here, this edge here, I'm also going to align vertically and pull it over so it's about equidistant on top to what the rest was. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Make it, align it vertically to pivot, and then drag it over. So now I've got the basis of my rectangle. Now, realistically, I don't need all of these, because this sort of like pie shape down at the bottom is going to need to stay pie shaped. So I want to grab the vertices that I know need to stay, which are those. Oh, make sure you don't have select by element on. I need these, and these, and these. All right, and now what we're going to do is try some different relaxing tools. So under relax, we're going to grab these edges. Actually, I should have grabbed the other ones. This is what I meant to do, like this, and grab those right there, and these right there and there. Okay, cool. And now I'm going to relax the polygon angles. All right. Generally, this will get you much closer to what you want. Now you'll notice I've got a pretty good lines through most of this, and these are now kind of straight. And you'll notice, and you can rewind it a little bit and see that a lot of this is much closer to where we started, or what we were looking for to begin with. You can even line stuff up like that if you want, but you can see you get some weird distortion. So what I want to do now is make sure each one of these lines in particular is set up properly. So I can double click that, flatten it out, and then make sure I've got the right distance between them. Same thing here. Double click the lines, flatten it out, and you can see I've got pretty good squares. A little distortion on the edges, that's understandable. All right, and we can keep doing this all the way through. Try and keep the distance between these edges the same. Boop. You know this is going to go up here. The next two are going to be here. Move that up a little bit. Same thing here. Oh, I didn't get it, did I? Double click, flatten, adjust. But you can see from a 2D artist standpoint, this makes this much easier to work with. We can also do the same thing right here. Double click that, and then align this horizontal or vertically. I think that's roughly the middle, and then we can adjust all of these again. So I can hit number 1, grab all these, and all of these. Missed a couple, and even those. Yep, and then relax them. Cool. And individual vertices will have to be adjusted, but you can see that this is much smoother than the other side. And we can keep on doing this until we've got enough of these verts comfortable. Now there's other ways to do this as well. We can grab the entire portion, keep boundary points fixed once we have this done, and then relax it that way. That also helps. But you can see we're getting distortion right at our seam here, and that comes from this section here. You'll notice that most of these edges here in the middle probably need to move up. All those. I'm going to grab those, but I'm going to deselect the ones that I accidentally got that I don't want, and I'm going to move those up so they're closer. You can align them individually, and that may even things out, and see if you can straighten them out that way. But some distortion is going to be unavoidable. But compared to where we were before, it's in much better shape. And once again, because we know this needs to be perfectly flat, we can grab these individually and flatten them out. And you can see it actually helps quite a bit. Flatten that out. Something like this. Flatten this out. You don't want to go too crazy. You don't want to like do everything. Now you would think there's a tool to do this, and there is, but it generally makes a mess. I have not been able to get it to behave well when I use it. You're welcome to try, but generally it becomes worse. So that's roughly what we want. Now be careful with this sort of stuff. Make sure that you're always making sure that you're keeping squares. If you're not keeping squares, then you probably need to look at how it laid out and adjust it from there. Flatten it and move it, and then we'll just do one more and flatten and move it. And maybe two more. Flatten and adjust. Alright, cool. So you can see, in general, that's much better. Now, at the bottom, we still have an issue with this distortion. Once again, flatten and adjust, and it will keep making this easier to work with for your 2D artist. If you are the 2D artist, then once again, you'll probably want to do this because it will save you time. See, if you look at the bottom, I do have rectangles here. If I have rectangles anywhere, I should take those points and adjust them until they become squares. See, I'm basically looking at that, and then grab these. I should probably be using verts. And then those are squeezing too much. Let's get number one. There. See, that's much more square. And you may have to adjust each one a little bit to make sure it's square. You can see I'm adjusting over here, but I'm watching here as you move around, because you can get it messed up if you're not careful, and etc., etc. There. And you may find that some are just far too big. I usually work from one direction and go the other, and then adjust the rest. So get those and then move these down a little bit to adjust to get the setup. Cool. And that's roughly what you want. Now, the other option you have is to select all these and use this straighten selection, but it doesn't work. Like, for some reason, it just bugs out most of the time. This will be the most important aspect of your entire UV because it is the piece that people will see the most of. But you can see now that there's very little distortion, and other than the seams down here, which no one should be looking at, it looks much, much better. Now, when it comes to like importance, actually let's look at this. You will have an edge here, which will give you a difficult time trying to loop it. To make this square would make, because it's conical shaped, would make it really distorted. So the option we usually use for cones is a planar map from the top. Now it's going to be huge, and that's kind of a problem, but we're going to fix that right now by going in and basically saying, I'm grabbing all of these pieces. I'll actually grab you because there's distortion there. Grab this, relax it by polygon, and now we have basically perfect squares. Now we grab the whole thing, and we're going to arrange, pack, normalize. What this does is makes all of them approximately the right size. So all of them are now equal of equal importance. Now this is where you come in and say, all right, the parts that are more important get more space. So we know that this part is the most important, and so is this part, which is this. So these two are the most important. So what I usually do is I grab the two that are most important, figure out a way to set them in that I think will fit best, probably like this, and get you out of the way. Yep. All right. I grab this, and then I rescale them using control so I don't distort them, and make it so that they get the proper size. So they're as big as I can make them because they're the most important pieces. Then I start fitting other pieces in however I can. So that goes there. These two pieces are of different importance, and this is probably number 2. So I'm going to do number 2 first. Get you in. And when I change them, I try and distort, I shrink them based on control. That way I don't get any weird issues. Now the least important piece is that. So that's going to be our smallest piece. Once again, I shrink it evenly. I put it in there. This is probably the second least important piece, which is that part. Move that down here and shrink it until it fits. There. Done. So this is my new and improved UV. It definitely has room for improvement too, as you can probably see already. Like, we got some weirdness on this. I could double click this. Oh yeah, this one in particular might be a problem because it'll have a hard time selecting it. If I select edges though, or verts, I can grab them. Make sure you don't have that thing on. Grab that. Cool. Now once again, this is a way to adjust this stuff after you've like peeled it and laid it out. And I'm going to adjust all of this through here. Yes. There. Okay, cool. And I try and relax those individually. Doesn't like it. You can try centers. Centers makes all of them equidistant. Although because I've got boundary points fixed, they're not working. Yeah, that's why. Okay, I don't want centers anyway. I want polygon angles. There. That's better. Cool. And then I want to distort the, like, see how they're squeezing in a little bit? I don't want that. So I'm going to hold Control and Alt and make it so that the outsides are basically straight and drag them up a little bit like that so they're not overlapping. There we go. That's much better. A little weird, a little wonky over here. You could adjust that individually. It's easy to see that that one should probably be over there, some, etc. But that's roughly how we want it. Individual sections like that can be adjusted and sort of tweaked. Things that are really wonky can be fixed, but generally that's going to be close enough because we got nice even squares and it goes from side to side without any real issues. Okay, maybe this one too. Boom, and then line it up. So yeah, you could tweak this stuff forever, but try not to get too bogged down by it. But that's it. That's the actual best layout we can have, because now if we want to put a stripe on this thing, we can just cut a stripe from one side to the next and be basically done from here to here, and it should line up just fine. Alright, just to cover really quickly how we are going to turn this in. I know it was unclear before, and I talked about how we are going to turn it in. I'm going to hit F for front. I'm going to grab my object, my vase here. I'm going to hit P for perspective and make sure it's got a nice view here, and then I'm going to go into my unwrap UV modifier, open the UV editor, and pull that up. So this is what we want to see, and this is what I'm looking for. I want to see the UV laid out super efficiently, like here, and then I want you to snip it. So go to your Windows snipping tool. You can just type in snip like we talked before. Click your snipping tool. Then I want you to click new, and then basically from the corner of the edit UVW window to here, so I can see the beautiful squares you've got and your UV, and you're going to save that wherever you're going to save it. I'll save it desktop for now, and this will be called your period, which is whatever the number is, underscore your last name, and call it fancy vase. All right, When you're done with that, hit save, and then you're going to send this to my email so you can get full credit. All right, sorry about the confusion on that, but now you know, and I'll see your file in my mailbox. Thanks.